100 Proofs the Israelites Were White, Version 2 by TrueVids. For more information and future videos, check out truevids.net. Number 1. The origin and migrations of the European people. Today, our people, the Europeans, are spread everywhere throughout the world, on every continent and every corner. Wherever we've went, we've built a Christian civilization. However, Europeans were not always found scattered across the world. At one time, we weren't even found in Europe. Just over 2,000 years ago, we all collectively, for the most part, originated from a mass of Germanic tribes who swarmed into Europe and eventually even conquered and destroyed the Roman Empire. So we didn't just start off as Englishmen or French, German, American, Australian and all the other European peoples. Rather, we all came from the same ancestors, our Germanic forefathers, and we started off as Franks, Saxons, Gauls, Goths, Vandals, Lombards and the many other numerous Germanic tribes. From then on, we became the modern nations, and with Christianity we built the greatest, most prosperous, thriving civilization ever to exist in history all over the world. But if we came from these Germanic tribes, then where did the Germanic tribes come from? Did they just magically appear out of nowhere? Now, most people probably have a vague recollection of the events of the Bible, and that the Israelites were deported out of their nation by the Assyrians. They were dragged off into the regions just below the Caucasus Mountains. But after that, what happened? Where did they go? Were they just lost in history forever? Is that where the story ends? Well, not quite. Over the past 200 years, modern archaeology has dug up many of these biblical locations, such as Nineveh, the former capital city of the Assyrian Empire. We have uncovered many pillars and tablets where the inscriptions have been translated, and it all shows that the Assyrians, the Persians and Medes, the Babylonians, all these empires really did exist, that the Assyrian kings really did deport millions of Israelites. There are numerous records of this, except they called them Cymri or Khumri, which means the people of Umri. Now, King Omri was the king of the northern kingdom of Israel at the time when the first deportations began. The Assyrians called the Israelites after their king. In Hebrew, the name Omri actually starts with a guttural C, so it would be pronounced something like Gimmiri. Throughout our English Bibles, the translators generally got rid of all these guttural C's in many words and just replaced them with vowels. So that is why our Bible translated the name to King Omri, but the Assyrian inscriptions dropped the guttural noise and kept the C or K, and so we have Gimmiri or Khumri. After the Assyrian Empire collapsed, a mass of these Cimmeri are recorded as beginning to invade and pillage Greece, while some went over the Caucasus Mountains and others around the Caspian Sea, all towards Europe, but many still remained where they were. The Greeks transliterated Cymri to Cimmeri, which we anglicized to Cimmerians, Ian meaning people, so people of Cymri, and these Cimmerians came from exactly where the Bible tells us the Israelites were deported to, because they were the Israelites. Now later, with the rise of the Babylonian Empire, they transliterated the name to Gimmiri, so that guttural Gimmiri, they preferred a G over a C or a K. Next, with the Persian Empire, we get a completely new name. They called the Israelites Sake, or sometimes Sake Sune instead, which means the sons of Sake. Now, over the centuries, the Israelites were still migrating to Europe in waves, and some adopted this new Persian name. One famous historian of the Saxons, Sharon Turner, proposed that the tribal name Saxons is likely the gradual merging of Sake and Sune together into a single word, and thus the origin origin of the name Saxon. As the Cimmerians or Saxons pushed their invasions further into Europe, they gained another two names, those being the Scythians, which they called themselves, and the Galatea, which the Greeks called them. Scythian is likely from the Hebrew word Sukkoth, and it literally means booth or tent, so people of the tents. The Israelites had no home or permanent settlement, they were constantly on the move, pushing further and further into Europe. As for Galatea, one possible theory is the famous Greek historian Homer mocked the Scythians, calling them Galaphagi, which means milk drinkers, since they lived and survived off their vast cattle they brought with them. The word Gala is milk in Greek, so Galatea. Eventually, these Galatea reached as far as northern Italy and sacked Rome. The Romans shortened the name Galatea to just Galli, which once again we anglicized to Gauls. The historian Livy calls these invading Gauls at the time a strange race, new settlers. The Romans had never seen them before because they were the migrating Israelites who had come from Assyria. The Gauls pushed even further into Europe, including what we call France today, and at the time the land was already called Celtica. Whilst most Gauls ended up all over Europe, the Gauls in Celtica blended in with the Celts, and the Romans from then on called the land Gaul. So now we're on to the final name, German, Germanic, Germania. Where do we get these names from? Well, you can thank none other than Julius Caesar for that one. During his conquest in Gaul, he distinguished the Gauls who had merged in with the Celts and the masses of Gauls all across Europe. He called those ones Germania, which means genuine, authentic, true, sincere. He saw the Gauls who merged with the Celts as a mixed breed, and the Gauls across Europe as a purer breed. Now this is purely Caesar's perspective. In reality, the Celts were also Israelites, so the Gauls in France were just as pure, and we will explain the origin of the Celts in a later proof. Strabo, the famous historian, lists these German people, or all of Germania, from the western Rhine all the way right back to the Black Sea, an enormous mass of people, and historians over and over again, like Pliny, assert that the Germans are the Scythians, who are the Cimmerians, further proving these are all one and the same people. So the deported Israelites migrated into Europe from Assyria, becoming the Germanic tribes, and then the modern European people and all of our nations today. Many went over the Caucasus Mountains, and that is today why we are collectively called Caucasians, and at one time all historians accepted this as a mere fact. In other words, we are the Israelites, the descendants of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, and the 12 tribes. We are the people of the Bible. All the promises and prophecies we inherited. It is our family history.